The following is a presentation of the Matt Talk Podcast Network.
Welcome again, wrestling fans, to the Short Time Wrestling Podcast. Jason Bryant here with you as always, episode 607. I don't even know if the numbers are right. It's a count. That's what we're doing. It's over 600. It's a bunch. So, plugging away at this show since 2013. Our guest today, your guest today, my guest today, everybody's guest today will be Chase Pami. Multiple-time All-American from Cal Poly, recently finished up his career with the Pennsylvania RTC. They've also got big news, came down the pipe over the weekend, is that Mark Hall, the four-time All-American and national champion as a freshman from Penn State, heading to Philly to reunite with Coach Brandon Slay. We'll talk a little bit about Chase's experience at the Penn RTC and what it was like to go to Philadelphia during his last few competitive years and then transition to a coach before heading back to his native Las Vegas, Nevada, starting up the Gold Rush Wrestling Academy. We'll talk a lot about that coming up here on Short Time. Before we get to that, want to give thanks to John Clauder and Ryan Mackin, the two latest team members of the Matt Talk Podcast Network. They got some cool stuff heading their way. Shirts, glasses, hats, stickers, depending on your level of patronage. I know that my draft glasses are pretty much been dwindled. I do have my compound shirts ready to go, courtesy of our friends Cliff Fretwell, longtime supporters of the program. And if you want to support this program, support this show, there's a number of ways to do that. But I guess the most directly beneficial is through my Patreon page at matttalkonline.com/contribute. Click on Patreon. But if you're not familiar with that, you want to go with the PayPal, you want to buy me a coffee. Not literally buy me a coffee, but I could probably use a coffee sometimes when I'm recording this. But there's also Venmo. There is also your typical Rockfin contribution, where if you subscribe to my Rockfin channel, you get this show ad-free, because if you listen to it through the network feed, you get some ads on there. And if you want this show early and you want it ad-free, you get it through either Patreon or the Rockfin channel. And one thing about the Rockfin channel at rokfin.com/MattTalkOnline, there's over 40 wrestling content creators on that platform. And I'll say this, I was a little hesitant jumping in to the platform, but so far so good. Your contributions have really helped. Your subscriptions have really helped, keep the lights on. I mean, I lost a lot of events, so I'm finding ways to provide content the best I can, give you guys early access, and reward you for your support of the program. That being said, I'm not going to beat around the bush any longer, other than I did catch a beastly 21-inch smallmouth bass up on Lake Mille Lacs over, I wouldn't call it vacation. We got away from people because you go up north to Garrison, population 210. There's not a whole lot of people around, so the social distancing, and where else can you socially distance than on a lake in the middle of nowhere? So got a couple nice walleye, which on Lake Mille Lacs you cannot keep. You just have to toss them back. And I was close to keeping that smallmouth because I don't actually have a giant fish on my wall. I grew up saltwater fishing, but I'm pretty happy with that. I got a picture of it, good enough, but enough about me, enough about fishing. Let's go to a place where it's kind of hard to fish because there's a lot of sand. It's the desert. And our guest on episode 606 of the Short Time, now 607. 606 and 605 were the senior send-offs for D1 and D3. We've got D2 coming at just soon with Brian Zins and Dort Mayab, and then the NAI Women's Invitational with Kat Balsh and Sandy Stevens. So that's the programming note. That's the pitch. That's the, hey, guess what? There's one more to go. Wrestling news. You want it for free every morning. MattTalkOnline.com/news. Sign up. You get an email. Boom. Day's news from around the world. Those are all the call to actions I can cram in 4 minutes. Now cue the swoosh, and we'll meet, once again, Chase Pami here on the Short Time Wrestling Podcast, because you've always got time for Short Time. Now up on Short Time, we go to the desert where it is hot. And you guys know me, I'm a weather nerd. I'm looking down, it's nice and warm, it's 83 degrees, but where our guest Chase Pami is today, he loves it in the desert. It's hot, it's a different kind of heat though, right, Chase?
It's 105 today, baby. 105. Nice and dry, though. It's manageable.
Well, at least it's only 103 in the shade. So, I mean, we've got that for you.
Yeah. You just can't touch. If you touch the seatbelt in the car or you touch the playground equipment, it's going to hurt.
Yeah, it's like that. Or the slide at the park. You remember that? Are you old enough to have the whole like metal steel slides, or that was the thing Vegas just didn't do?
Tail end of it. They I think they had them like under shaded things, but you couldn't really do them in Vegas. No way. If you did it without a shade, you would tear your skin off, burn your skin off.
Or back in our day, it was like, they wouldn't actually fix them. They just like, let's just put some cover on it and hope the open metal rusting off doesn't slice, your femoral artery or something as you're sliding down it.
Can you believe there was someone put a picture, it was like Askren, and then maybe someone else I saw that put a picture of a big slide and then this big like metal playground equipment. I'm just thinking to myself, like, could you imagine nowadays if they had something like that, trying to let kids play on that kind of stuff? Absolutely not.
I mean, part of it is, you know how it is, man. You got to get tough, man. You got to get tough.
That's exactly what John would say.
So for years, I've been sitting on this. We're gonna lead with that. So back when Chase was, by the way, as a 2-time All-American at Cal Poly, but after his college career was over, he's at the Olympic Training Center around the time I was out there working at USA Wrestling. And we'd always talk, it's right when the video was starting. We're always talking about doing these skits or something with Chase being John Smith. And neither of us really had the balls to do it. We recorded it. We're like, nah, we're not posting that. So now your career is done. We'll get to that in a bit. But now you can finally unleash the John Smith. So give us your best pride of Del City, King of Stillwater, John Smith.
Oh, I haven't done it for a while. So I remember I was my first year out of college and I was training. I was living at the Olympic Training Center, but I was like, I want to go to Oklahoma State. So I reached out to John. I called him. I talked to him on the phone for a while. I was just hungry to learn, hungry to get better. And I was like, I want to come out and train. Absolutely. So I come out there and got to work with him a little bit, but then kind of towards the end of the trip, I was like, I just want to sit and talk and listen to this guy. So I went to the office and I really probably only said about 20 words or so. Questions. I asked him a couple questions and he'd elaborate on them. But this one question I vividly remember, and he was like talking to me about like being self-reliant. He's like, Pam, when I was wrestling and the international level and doing all these kind of things, you got to be self-reliant, and what I do every day is I'd work on my leg laces and there was a janitor, one day I couldn't find someone to do my leg laces. I need to get my reps on them. He said, there's a janitor. And I walked over and said, hey, what are you doing? He's doing, not doing anything. So I said, hey, lay down, let me work on my leg laces. And he, drove my leg laces and that was that. And I left, I got my leg laces in for the day. And I was like, I was dying, just the commitment. And I remember the time, this is when like Coleman Scott and Jordan Oliver were there. And he was like, I think this was the year before Coleman placed at the Olympics. And he was kind of like, these guys are still learning to be self-reliant, Pammy. And Coleman's getting it, he's getting it. And Jordan, Oliver, he's young, he's a young buck, but, he's coming along, but he's not quite there yet. So I'll be admitted, I'm honest right now. I'm a little disappointed in your drawl because you've got I can hear John saying it, but I haven't heard. Got to be self-reliant, Chase. Man, you got to get self-reliant. I mean, you had it nailed, man. Come on, you got to give it to us. I think let me try without my headphones on. I can't hear myself that well, and I haven't been around the wrestling world, so it's a little bit harder to like.
Well, maybe we'll come back to that.
We've been quarantined for too long. I'm sitting here trying to remember what he even sounds like. I'll have to think of another one. Maybe before the end, it'll come back to me. And for all the people that I disappointed, just forgive me, and we'll take another crack at this maybe towards the end.
I mean, I got 2 pictures of John in this office right now. I got one down here, one with him and Sergey. I got Dan Gable with the bad 70s era comb over back here too. But this isn't video for those of you watching, so we can't really talk about the speakeasy. But Chase, you've just finished up your wrestling career as an athlete and a coach. But before we get to what you're doing now back in your hometown of Las Vegas, I want to start back with your career. And what made you find wrestling? How did it discover you?
Dude, I was talking about, it's been funny, not funny, but it's just been cool to kind of go over this kind of last couple of days doing, talk with Flo the other day. And man, I started doing judo. Well, I played soccer when I was a kid, and then I got into judo, and we were doing judo for a couple years. And my mom, she really liked the fact that, maybe you could go to college and do judo. And she was really perceptive with things. But what happened is she started seeing that there were wrestlers that did judo. They kind of would cross over, and the wrestlers would come in, and they'd still get beat at times, but they'd also do well, and they'd pin people in judo. And so she's like, well, let's try wrestling. Let's see how well this works if we want to cross train. She was, and she also had me doing gymnastics at the time. So she had me doing all these things to try and cross train and make me the best judo player I could at the time. So I'm doing judo practice, and I vividly remember the day I'm sitting there, we're finishing up practice, and I can see her going over to talk to the coach and the wrestling coach, and she's doing her thing. And I know she's talking to him, bragging about her son, my son's this and this and this. But she was confident. I mean, she believed in me, and she got me involved in wrestling. And funny thing was, only the first year and a half, I really only did Greco. We didn't do freestyle or folk style. I remember the first time we did folk style. It was kind of it was so foreign to do. But it was great. And within about a year or so, we transitioned over to wrestling fully. But there was 1 year in there where I was doing judo, wrestling, and gymnastics all together. And finally she's like, all right, we're done with the gymnastics and the judo. You're going to be a wrestler. And kind of that was that. And we went full wrestling, and we were doing all the, Western regional tournaments and kids tournament at Iowa and Tulsa and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, we jumped in head first, especially for being from Las Vegas at the time. There wasn't the wrestlers, it just wasn't a big wrestling culture, So
for as many wrestling events as that are in Vegas, it's it's a casino town. I mean, there's the one significant industry there that, and then there's everything else. Although the Raiders are coming to town, that should be interesting. And then there's that hockey team, but which, hey, they made the Stanley Cup Finals as an expansion team. That's kind of cool. I've been a Vegas Golden Knights fan since day one. Yeah, that was 2 years ago. No,
hey,
but
I love them now, man. That first year, I was kind of watching them. I'm like, oh, they're for real. They made the playoffs, and they're going and rolling. I'm like, oh. Now I'm sold out. I won't be a Raiders fan. I'm a diehard Dallas fan for life. And
wow.
This is my sisters are. I'm the baby by a long shot. So my sisters are 15 and 16 years older than me, and so they were having a Super Bowl party when I was 4 years old. And it was the years that the Dallas Cowboys beat the Buffalo Bills, and that was the first time that I ever saw football. My first experience is watching the Cowboys win. And from that point on, I would follow them every week. I followed them through and through. I collected memorabilia and cards and everything I could possibly get my hands on. And it's been a rough stretch since '95 when they won the Super Bowl. And I don't know when they're going to win the next one, but hey, I've been on this long. So
that would have been the Leon Lett game, if I'm not mistaken, where, was it Don Beebe chased him down? He was about to cross and
knock the football out of there. What do you? I remember watching. I don't remember that specific play, but I remember watching it later on in life, a couple years later on some highlight reels. I was like, this guy, what was he thinking?
Yeah, he gave us two of the great bumbling highlights of all time. One in the Super Bowl and one in the Thanksgiving Day snow game against the Miami Dolphins. Why do I remember that? But you mentioned gymnastics and judo. What I find interesting about people say they get into judo, I can't tell you where there's a judo club like here in Minnesota. I can tell you where 15 wrestling clubs are. Maybe that's because I'm, inserted into the wrestling community. But where do you find judo? Because I hear that as a common theme, especially, Hawaii, it's part of the curriculum out there, and it's a high school sport. But finding judo, that's kind of Spencer Lee's mom was a judoka. So, there's that, him finding judo, but how do you find judo?
Honestly, my mom, we found it. We played soccer, and there was a kid that played soccer on the team, and his dad was raving about they were going to these judo practices that they stumbled upon. And sure enough, we went to one practice, and that's a really weird crossover that you have judo and soccer, but that's kind of how we found that. The clubs are not easy to find. I was talking to one of my parents the other day, one of my athletes here in Vegas, and that they were talking about doing judo. So it's just and they're kind of like tucked away usually. They were in middle schools, a lot of them at the time. Now you can kind of find them a little more in MMA gyms in Vegas here, especially when I was looking around to different locations. I've seen quite a few judo instructors and judo classes offered, but even then it kind of gets bundled in there with like, oh, we got jiu-jitsu, judo, and wrestling. And like the ones you automatically think about are jiu-jitsu and wrestling. Like judo doesn't get the respect that it deserves, you know? So yeah, we found it in a little elementary school down the road from my parents' home.
And gymnastics is one of those sports that seems to be one of those foundational things. Like I know Jake Herbert raves about, you know, with his old base training system, or I don't know how old it is. It's as far as I know, still around. Him and Andy were like, you know, to be able to control somebody else, you need to be able to control your own body. So just simple things like, you know, balance and things of that nature. I mean, how much did gymnastics really help with your athleticism when you got into wrestling?
I'm a big advocate for it. I always tell my parents and any friends that I have, if you're going to have kids that wrestle, put them in gymnastics, even if it's for a year or two, just for your even the balance, but even like the dexterity that you get from your muscles. You know, I wrestled until I was 32 years old. Granted, some of those years at the end got a little rough. Just my body was just starting to hurt, and I was kind of getting over it. But I had one small surgery all my years that I wrestled, just one scope of my hip, and that was it. And I think a lot of it was that early on development in gymnastics and the flexibility, the dexterity I got, and you know, the core strength that you developed, and kind of the base that it laid. It's a phenomenal foundation, and I think as a country we're doing it a lot more in our practices, and even putting putting an emphasis on it. I think I really, really believe for kids, it's probably one of the best, really one of the best things you can do for a kid going into combat sports.
Talking about your success in high school, 2-time state champion, Nevada, you said that Vegas didn't really have a wrestling culture, you know, growing up, but winning a state title is an important thing no matter who you are and where you're at. But at what point did you realize that, you know, you had Division I aspirations, and college wrestling was a reality for you?
I really hated wrestling all growing up. I couldn't stand it. And then I was getting ready for Fargo in 9th grade. My mom kind of was like always the one prodding me and pushing me. And she's like, you're going to go do this. You're going to go do this tournament with the high school coaches. Cause we'd kind of come into the high school room a little bit when I was in middle school. We had like a group of us, and we were coming in, and that was the first time I remember really liking it. I remember going to that camp, and I really loved it. I was like, I don't know what it was. It was something about just being able to work hard. And there were a couple good wrestlers that had kind of come out, and few and far in between. But I vividly remember kind of the group of guys that did it. There were 4 guys that did a clinic. So Gray Maynard was one of them, who ended up being my club coach. Another guy named Eugene Harris, who was an All-American at Oregon. He was there. Matt Azevedo, head coach at Drexel, was also my coach at Cal Poly. And then a guy named Eddie Gifford, who was from Vegas.
Fresno State, right?
Fresno State. And so those 4 guys did that clinic. And I remember just being like, man, this is awesome. Like, these guys are in college. If they did it, I can do it. And but even then, to be honest, I kept wrestling, and I had plans to, like, I really wanted to go to Bible college. I was always like, I wanted to go be a youth pastor, and that's what I was all about, you know. And finally, my junior year, I kind of had a breakthrough. I went to Reno, and that's when TOC was a pretty tough tournament. You know, back then it was kind of its later years, but it was a tough tournament. I think I placed second, and that was the first time I thought, all right, I can do this. Like, I can go to college. Like, I can wrestle the Division I level. So it was a mixture of that. And then we went to actually Minnesota for the Clash, and we watched Minnesota duel Arizona State, and Ryan Bader, who's from Reno, Nevada, he wrestled Damian Hahn. It was a fairly close match. And Ryan went on to All-American that year. He took 4th. And I thought, all right, for sure, if this guy's from Nevada, he wanted to be an All-American, I can do it too. And that's really when I really kind of put my foot on the gas and said, all right, I want to go to college. I really wanted to go to Arizona State. That was my desire. My coaches in high school, my one coach was an All-American at Arizona State, Tim Jeffries. He was, and my other coach was Mike Garcia. He coached and helped out with Chirella when UNLV had a wrestling program. So I had some coaches that knew what they were doing. But yeah, that's really when I put the pedal to the metal and was like, all right, I'm gonna make this happen. This is what I want to do. And things kind of played out the next couple of years.
So Cal Poly pops up on the screen, and they're it's a beautiful campus in San Luis Obispo. It's had a really good wrestling tradition, predominantly when they were Division II. But sitting in there as an associate member of then the Pac-10, what makes you pull the trigger on Cal Poly?
Yeah, it was. Well, let me rewind back to my freshman year of high school. They had pulled in a pretty good recruiting class my freshman year. I was still watching it a little bit. I remember I had one magazine that my coach gave me, and it had the recruiting classes that people were pulling in. And I thought if I was going to go to college, Cal Poly would be really cool. I still really wanted to go to Arizona State, but they had pulled in a guy named Daryl Vasquez, California's first ever 4-time California state champ. And I remember watching him at Reno, and this dude was killing at the time. He was one of the top ranked guys in the country. I'm like, man, this guy goes to Cal Poly. Like I'd like to go there, And then they were getting guys like Chad Mendez, and they had a few other guys that they were bringing in that were top guys. They had Vic Moreno, who was an All-American, and so that's kind of where that desire came from. I'd kind of forgotten about it, and then once it really became a reality was Matt Azevedo was getting ready for Midlands. He was going to wrestle Midlands, even though he was wrestling international. He decided to wrestle Midlands. This is 2004 maybe, and he came in for a workout, and I got a workout in with him. I didn't really know why he was doing it. It's my senior year. I'm still not signed. I'm pretty under the radar. I'm who's going to take a chance on a Nevada kid. And he comes in, we go through a workout, and I'm like, man, I'd really like to go to Cal Poly. I think instead of going to Arizona State, I'd like to go to Cal Poly. Arizona State hadn't reached out. Finally, he reached out in February, and really that was the only big school that was doing well. And they had just had 2 All-Americans with Daryl Vasquez and Vic Moreno, so I was aware of that. I didn't really garner a lot of other interest, So it was that, and then John Azevedo, great human being, really solid in his faith kind of guy, and that was important to me. And the academics were a pretty solid academic school, and just the opportunity to really, it's kind of like a dream come true in some sense, because it was I remembered man, my freshman year I wanted to do this, I forgot about it, and then it kind of came full circle, and it was a no-brainer. When I went there on the recruiting trip, I was like, oh, wow, this is beautiful. Where do I sign?
A lot of guys coming through when they're in those situations, it takes a tournament like Reno. You actually placed in Fargo. So, it's not like you were completely off the radar, but maybe your recruiting prospects were low. If it wasn't Cal Poly, what was your next most likely landing spot?
Ooh, Arizona State came in late. Because senior nationals was really tough at that time. I mentioned this the other day that my semifinals bracket of senior nationals was me, Dustin Schlater, Brent Metcalf, and Gregor Gillespie.
You're the forgotten guy in that group, because everybody was talking about Metcalf and Schlater. Then Gillespie was like the really strong third. It's like those 3, and then there's Chase.
Hey, those guys, maybe if I'd have won the nationals my senior year. But you had 4 guys in the semis who were all in the national finals. That was a tough bracket. I took 5th. I ended up in the Conci semis. I was going for a single leg takedown, run the pipe in overtime, and somehow I stepped on my own foot and fell over. So. But yeah, that's it was Arizona State, but they wanted me to go 141, and that just kind of that wasn't going to work. I knew I was too big. Mark Manning had come up to me at senior nationals. I didn't know Nebraska at all. I wasn't being mean. I just didn't know them, and he tried to talk to me, and I was like, no, man, I don't like, I didn't say like, I don't know who you are, but I kind of probably had that demeanor. Like, I just didn't know who they were. And I was like, no, I'm going to Cal Poly, man. I'm good. I really didn't have a number two. I think Bakersfield had talked to me and I was going to go on a recruiting visit, but then Cal Poly, it all seemed like a right fit. So, yeah, there wasn't a lot in terms of places where I could have went.
So now you're taking me down this 2005 rabbit hole real quick. I'm gonna pull this bracket up because I hadn't even thought about it. Let's see. There's Metcalf Schlater. I see you wrestle Dustin in the semis. Let's see who else is in that weight class, because that's what we know. So we got Joe Cornejo. That guy was a monster.
He was tough, man. He was a Kansas guy. He was ranked top 10. There was a guy named Danny Grader in there who was
Danny Grader was he ended up wrestling, I think, Fort Hays State. I think he ended up wrestling D2.
Yeah, he was tough. There was
Tom Fazio from Jersey, Marco Toledo's
Greco guy, training center. Yeah,
Mike Cannon, Tyler Grayson, I'm just like, Luis Gonzalez was a hammer in high school. I'm just like, yeah, you go back through. I think somebody called this the last great year of senior nationals because, obviously there's guys in there. There's going to be somebody in there from like early rounds that ended up doing. I'm still like there's Brussetta's Dan Brusetta wrestled
Oregon
Jeff
State.
Becker. Yeah, Jeff Becker at ODU. I mean, there's another guy. They met in the Concy round one. I mean, Becker is a Fargo finalist.
Yeah,
at this, I'm like, dude, don't sit Kyle Pardun, another guy from that school that doesn't have wrestling in Norfolk anymore.
McGoldrick, right, from PA was another hammer at that time. Tim McGoldrick, I think is
Tim McGoldrick. Yeah, I think he was from Whitehall, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
wrestled at Ryder. Yeah, geez, man. Okay, we got to close that out because that's going to take up most. If I go back, that was like I had just moved to Pennsylvania from Virginia that year. It was just moving. So I was really big in the high. I remember going to that one. But yikes, So anyway, you're at Cal Poly, and we get into your college career, and your first two trips to nationals are not exactly the most riveting. What did you learn from those experiences where you had two quick 2-and-Qs?
That first year, dude, I was so not naive, just so kind of like ignorance was bliss a little bit in some ways. I went to nationals and I had no clue it was in that big of an arena. I was just like, oh wow, this is a big arena. Even though I'd seen it on TV, it just for some reason didn't click that it was that big. And I wrestled Mike Poeta my first match. It was actually only a 5-3 match, but it was a really controlled 5-3 match. And I got beat pretty bad on the backside. I just think I don't know, that first year I did all right. I had a couple decent wins, couple ranked wins throughout the year, but I just, I don't know. I wasn't quite there yet. The next year was rough because, I'd beaten, CP Schlater that year, who was ranked number 1 in the country. I had a 2-0 match with Jordan Lean during the year. I'd beaten, Sherfy from Boise State. It was a top 10. Had a 5-4 match with Gillespie. I was in the hunt all year long, and I think I got seeded 9th going into the tournament. Yeah, and I get upset by he has a brother,
Brian Letters from
Brian Letters, man. He
I've got all this down here. It's not like I'm conjuring up your career off the top of my head. I can't give myself that much credit.
Man, I dinged up my knee, and that's not an excuse. I just, what I think it was, I had wrestled so many close matches throughout the year. I had so many overtime matches that it finally just caught up to me at nationals. That match went to overtime. My next match went to overtime, and it just kind of caught me. I tightened up a little bit because I was seated high, and it was a rough experience because that one I thought like I legitimately could have All-American that year. I had the wins to do it, but for some reason I tightened up. And then actually about 2 months ago, I was looking through the backside of that bracket, and I was like, man, even if I lost that first one and I just would have wrestled back through, even won the next match, I'd lost to Halushak from Drexel. There was a road. You know, everyone's tough, but there was a road and a little bit better road. But you know, it was what it was.
Yeah, your route. Let's look at that. You get Ryan Lushak, who was an All-American for Drexel, but not that year. Then Kyler Sanderson, Newly McSpadden, John Bonilla Bowman. That's the place. So in terms of credentials on the backside, that's probably a pretty favorable draw if you're looking at, obviously retrospectively, we look at it because, I mean, Sanderson was probably the one landmine there if you're looking at it.
Yep. Newly, I'd beaten Newly during the year. And Bonilla Bowman, I'd never wrestled Bowman. I'd actually never wrestled Sanderson in all the years we were in the same bracket. I think 3 years, never wrestled each other.
Yeah, but you get to your junior year, you finally play seventh. It's funny because your junior and senior year, you opened up with Kirk Kinzer both years, and then you also wrestled J.P. O'Connor in high energy, high pressure matches. Obviously, you know the finals match, but a lot of people forget you wrestled O'Connor in the blood round the year before.
Yeah,
and what was like. You know, one of those. Explain the blood round. I mean, I've had a lot of people that on the show that talk about their feelings in that particular moment. How stressful is that match and those moments in those matches? How much do you overthink or do you think in those matches?
Man, wait. One thing though, Kinzer was senior year. My junior year was Jesse Dong. Was Jesse Dong my junior year, first round, and we won a bunch of overtimes. And he actually beat me that year too. And then it was Chandler.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I was looking at the bracket wrong. He had Kinzer. Yeah, I looked at the bracket. So screw that. I'm going to put an edit point. I'm going to screw that up. So you know what? Edit point at 27. I'm just going to start that whole. Screw it. Let's just let it go. I'm going to be organic with this, man.
It's all good.
It's not live. So, okay. So you didn't. Where did I see Kinzer at? That's what I don't know.
Maybe my senior year.
But I know you had Kinzer your senior year, but I clicked on it twice.
I wrestled in my junior year at Vegas that year. I beat him in Vegas that year.
Yeah, it's if I've only got your brackets up on screen. So yeah. So as my preparation sucked, you did. Let's go to the blood round question before I dig myself out of a hole here.
Dude, I hadn't beaten JP at all that year. He beat me twice, and the first one was pretty handy. The second one was closer. I did not have time to be nervous. I remember I went back to the hotel. The match before was a crazy match. I had barely won the match before. I remember I went to go back and lay down, and 15 minutes later, Sammy Henson comes and knocks on my door, and we're in the hallway. We had one of our freshmen had come with us. He actually All-American Ryan DeRoche. He came with us, and Sammy Henson had me in the hallway drilling. He had me drilling in the hallway. He's like, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. He had me getting reps and everything. So I didn't even have time to be nervous. I just I remember all right, I'm going to go in and lay down. I laid down in my room, and it was it couldn't have been more than 30 minutes before it's time to go back to the hotel. Because you remember in St. Louis, you do that little walk and everything too. So I'm getting ready to go out there, and we had a game plan. JP was good at riding, so the game plan was I needed to try and get riding time because he would always get riding time on me. So I think I got 47 or 45 seconds of riding time in the second period, and then he gets on top in the third period. And sure enough, he's riding me out. I think he's going to get if he rides me out, he's going to get close to riding time. So what happens is, and I've never seen this match, but JP would always do his thing where he'd be either claw or he'd be half and tight waist. He was really good in crab ride, kind of like Jesse Jansen. And for some reason, I just remember thinking I don't know if he tripped or if it was me, but I remember we're on our feet. I couldn't get away, and I put my hands above my head, and I just dropped. I just dropped straight down to the mat for some reason. As soon as he went to sit me, I dropped at the same time and straightened my arms so that the half slipped out. I remember I caught his leg, I got the reversal, and I was holding onto the leg. And I remember there was 9 seconds left. And he's trying to kick away, and I remember I kind of was did enough to make the referee not stop it. I was holding onto that shoe so tight. And I remember looking at the clock and it was like 3, 2, 1. And I was kind of like shell shocked that I won. Like I didn't celebrate. I think Sammy Henson and John Azevedo were more excited than me. I was kind of just like still so on edge because Sammy Henson had me like all fired up to ready to go. It didn't even hit me. Like even I'm in the back and like our other assistants came up and like we're all excited and pumped. And I was like, it just didn't dawn on me until like, until kind of after I'd wrestled the next match. I think I'd lost to Matt Moley. He beat me pretty good. And then I was like, oh wow, I really did this. I All-American. I kind of settled in at that point, you know? But I'll never forget, man, that last 6 seconds of holding on to that shoe. And I was right in line with the clock. I remember exactly where I was. I remember looking at the clock and that clock running down and that was a tough bracket, man. That was a really tough bracket too. That was, I think you had Burroughs, Poeta. Who else is on there? You got it in front of you.
Well, Burroughs, Poeta, Lean, Gillespie, Matt Moley was 6th. You were 7th. Chandler, of course. And by the way, I figured out where I was wrong on that thing. In your quarter bracket, yes, you did wrestle Jesse Dong. One line under is Kurt Kinzer. So my eye tricked me. Chandler wrestled Kinzer in her first round, right below Jesse Dong.
It was a close match too.
Yeah, eyes are deceiving me.
I was hoping for the upset for Kinzer on Chandler. Chandler always he was a strong dude. He's a bad style matchup for me. I didn't do well against him.
Justin Gaethje was in this weight class too.
Yeah, he's.
One of these days we're going to go through and look at all the MMA guys at nationals, but
that'd be fun.
That's not this show. That's not this show. So senior year, you make the run. You know, Adam Hall's a guy. You know, you guys are in the same conference. It's paths have crossed over the years. You knock him off. He's a 2 seed. The Justin Lister is sitting there. Guy from Binghamton had pinned Jesse Dong in the quarters to make the semis. Now we can look at it again. The retrospectively that Pat Popolizio was doing special things at Binghamton at the time, and going into the semifinals with an unknown guy from a school that has really zero Division I wrestling tradition. How do you keep yourself balanced knowing that you had just knocked off the 2 and here you are, you got an unseeded guy ready to go, just between you and the finals?
So I remember because his match was right next to mine and he pins Jesse Dong in the quarters and I'm on the semis and Adam Hall beat me twice that year. And the pin happened early, if I remember. But I remember we went out of bounds and I start hearing the crowd go crazy right before we go out of bounds. And then I hear the crowd like go nuts and I see the pin and I'm thinking to myself, if I win this match, I'm going to the national finals. Nothing against Justin. I felt like if I won that match, I was going. And so that was enough.
This is during your match with Hall.
This is during, dude, I have some weird, I have a funny story maybe when we get there, if we have time, about the U.S. Open a couple years ago, losing the first match and coming 7 matches back. But anyways, I'm watching this match and I'm like, if I win, I'm going to the national finals. And I remember that kind of gave me this extra boost of to do it. So all we prepared beforehand, Mark Perry said, just do not cradle this guy. Just get takedowns. We're not going to really try and ride him. Just get takedowns, and that's it. And every takedown was like try and finish off my feet. Everything was cover the ankles on ankle picks because that was a big thing for me. And it ended up being a pretty handy match. There was one time where I was on a cradle and I could hear Mark in the corner yelling at me, "Do not do it! Do not do it! Do not do it!" And I was like, "All right." I bailed on it and just took the 2. And that was I felt good going to that match. As I thought, confident I was going to win that match.
You mentioned 2 names. You mentioned Sammy Henson and Mark Perry. Both of them have, high regards when it comes to their coaching proficiency. And of course, 2 guys that are somewhat nomadic in their coaching careers. I mean, explain the difference or similarities between guys like Mark Perry and Sammy Henson in their knowledge.
Sammy, I'm thankful to this day for Sammy, man. I'll always be appreciative. He really took me under his wing and I traveled to camps with him and everything I learned on top was really from Sammy. And I was a California guy, West Coast guy. I was pretty good on top for a guy from Vegas. I'd watched a lot of guys and focused on it, but then with him, it really kind of took me over the top. And really kind of got me over that hump. And I mean, I turned Adam Hall in the quarters to advance. You know, I had a pretty good tilt on top. So Sammy was, Sammy was just, he was one of these guys where it was really, you were all in or you weren't. But if you were in and you trusted him, you bought into him, he had your back. You just kind of had to listen and go, you know, and for me, it took some time. But Sammy really also took the time off the mat, which was a challenge at first, but I told him, like, you know, like I really wanted him. It was important to me to have conversation with him off the mat. And he took that time and we built that trust and you know, he really got me over the hump to become an All-American that first time. But yeah, his coaching style is intense, and you just kind of have to just go and try and not think too much while you're doing it. Mark Perry is, someone was asking me this the other day because all the Sunkist girls or the girls at Iowa followed him over Sunkist and Gilman left, and whether or not that was, you know, I don't know all the details behind everything there, but Mark has this kind of ability to make you believe in yourself and that you can do things that you didn't think you could do. Like, for example, he had me thinking, I'm not going to lie to you. He had me thinking I was going to go out and tech JP O'Connor in the finals of the NCAAs. And now that I look back at it, I'm like, I don't know if that was the right strategy, but I commend the fact that I bought in all the way and that's what we were going to go for. But he does have this really good ability to make you believe in yourself. And two, he's really good at scouting. He has a really good eye for scouting. He can kind of pick people apart. He can come up with a really good game plan. And you might not know that unless you've really spent time with him. So those two things make him a really he has an eye for it. You know, I mean, Uncle John and all the history, he has an eye for wrestling and you know, so yeah, that's what makes Mark a solid, you know, a good coach in a lot of ways.
All right, now finishing up the last match of your college career, doesn't end with you on the top of the podium. It ends with JP O'Connor picking up Harvard's third ever national championship. And again, you'd beaten him the year before in the blood round. That match, when it counts, this time, what was the difference in the two bouts?
Actually, this was different than any one of the bouts because I came out, I got the first takedown, I was up 2-1, and then I'm in deep on the leg again, right on the edge. And, you know, this had happened to me multiple times, and I always kick myself in the butt because I never made the adjustment. This had happened to us 2 or 3 times where we had been near the out of bounds line and I had jumped and dove for a leg. He didn't score on the other ones, but on this one, I didn't climb up the leg. I tried to dive for it, and he sat the corner. He got 2 and he rode me out to finish that period. So he was up 3-2 going into the second period, and you know, he also started bleeding a lot. So it kind of it really messed up my momentum. That match, if you ever watch, it's like a 15-minute match because he keeps getting, keeps bleeding. It was hard, man. And JP always, you know, he was good on top. He was a solid competitor and, you know, he was able to get riding time, which was a big thing. And really realistically, I think if that second takedown, finishing that might have been enough to change the course because I was wrestling from behind, and he's a solid position guy. He's not easy to score on. You know, he's good on top, and he won 6-4. We had a close scramble at the end of that match. Kind of rolled around a little bit and almost got the tying takedown. But I just could never really get the ball rolling again and get that second score. You know, so that was hard, man. That was and it got harder as the years went on. At the time, I was like, man, this was cool. I got to wrestle in the national finals, and it was part of my dream. You know, obviously the dream was to win it, and you know, years later, it'll sting. You'll still get those things where you kind of get that little I wish I'd have done that different. But nonetheless, you know, thankful for the experience and be able to make that run. You know, that was it was a lot of fun to do. I enjoyed it. I gave it everything I had. You know, I have no regrets in terms of in terms of the effort and everything I did to make that happen.
Now we look at what we're talking about next is your international career, but you're 10 years removed at least from college. And we're looking at, there's so much focus on, senior level athletes. And we go back to the college career, the college match. What do you remember this match where there's 10 years of international competition and coaching here that we're about to get to. And we're just not going to gloss over it. But the point is why is it in your perspective that the college career is much more talked about than the senior level career? No matter how great you are, it's like, I remember that batch at nationals and, back in 84 or something. I mean, versus, winning a world championship or making a world team, something like that.
Yeah, it's the thing that's valued, right? It's the thing that you think about as a kid. You talk to most kids nowadays, and they want to be, and I think, granted, I think it really has changed. I think the introduction of social media and all the different, your podcasts and you got, what some of the other, Flo and Rockfin, all these other people are doing, and kids are seeing guys, there's more exposure to it. When I was young, I mean, the majority of videos that I watched were college videos. Even when I was in high school, they were videos from college. I didn't see much from international. And unless you really knew wrestling, you didn't, or came from a place where wrestling was big, you didn't really know about the international stuff. So, which made it, interestingly, made it a little bit harder for me when I got to the international level. It was different in college, but when I got to international, it was, I don't know whether there was a correlation or not, that's a deeper dive, but, I think it is changing. And I think coaches now are, at least for me, and when we get to it, I talk about Gold Rush and, what I'm instilling into kids now and making them think way beyond the college stuff about the world teams and Team USA and all that, because, if you're aimed on that, all the other stuff will take care of itself.
So you go to the training center and you're in an era before the rule change. You were in this wrestling purgatory of just the worst rules we've ever seen. Thankfully, they got changed in 2013, but you got to the training center and, there's Zeke's there, you got Slay there, you got, Bill Zadek, our world championship coach was a coordinator. There were 3 coordinators at USA Wrestling, me, Ryan Johnson, and Bill Zadek. So that's how far we've come. But when you see, and the room is just amazing now, but then it was narrow, it was crowded when we had camps and stuff in. And, what did you take away from that experience? Well, I guess first, what drew you to the training center, and 2, I mean, it's a unique opportunity. What did you get from that experience?
Well, I was going to stay at Cal Poly and be a volunteer assistant. I was only a month away from going on payroll, and I went out to the training center for training camp, getting ready. The guys are getting ready for World Championships 2010, and I go out there and Slade talks to me, and I tell him, no, I don't want to move there, and I'm already taking a job at Cal Poly. And Chris Pendleton was trying to get me up to Wyoming at the same time. And I told him, no, I'm going to stay at Cal Poly. And he said, well, at least listen to me on this. If you're going to do this training thing, don't try and coach and train. Commit to the training full time and see what you can do with it. And I kind of remember thinking about it. And I remember towards the end of training camp, Slay approached me again. And I said, something along the lines of, I think this could be a good situation. We had a conversation, and I kind of decided right then and there. I was like, this is what I want to do. And I went back to Cal Poly and told them, look, this is what I'm going to do. I think this is best for me. And they were supportive. Great. They understood. And I came there and I came into actually a pretty good situation, a lot better situation, training situation. I actually had, guys, we were ranked 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th in 66 kilos at one point. It was me, Philip Simpson, Angel Cejudo, and Justin Perch were kind of the guys. And then we had at one point 9 guys at 66 kilos living there and training there full time, and then you actually had Derek Moore, who was 60 kilos. You had Moza Faye, Tyler Caldwell, Marty Usman, UFC champ now. And
are we allowed to say Marty? I don't know. I mean, I know it's the thing. When we say Marty, we're not making fun of you. That's how we know you, man. Anyway.
Oh
continue.
yeah. I forgot about that. You know what? I can't even do it's how it's saved in my phone, but
I actually saved him as Kamarudin as a gag one time. We're at like universities in Akron, and I'm like, yeah, hey Marty, I'm going to put you in as Kamarudin on my phone. He goes, you don't know how to spell it, and I spell it right. He goes, okay, you got it.
Yeah.
And since he's always, and I'd always put the graphics as Kamarudin on the graphic because it was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to spell his full name out. But anyway, that's another tangent. Yeah. Marty was there.
He was there. Win Mahalik was there. I mean, it was a really solid crew of. And
Brent Jones was there.
Brent Jones,
He got hit in the head with a hockey puck one night. A hockey game. Oh man,
my goodness. So
Virginia guys.
Yeah. Go Virginia. Really, it was a great crew to be a part. Also, Deron Wynn was there for a bit. Darian Caldwell was there for a bit. Escobedo, Nickerson. There was a bunch of guys that kind of came through that. The Paulsons came in and out of town. So it was really, and there was no RTCs at the time. You think about it, there was only 10 years ago, there really wasn't the options to go to RTCs and and the other thing is I wasn't even getting paid to live there. I eventually someone from Denver reached out to me and was like, hey, do you want to come up? And I think I was getting paid like $450 a month to drive up to Denver every Tuesday to run a wrestling practice. I was like, my gas is like probably $100. And so I kind of moved there without like anything in mind and kind of just made it happen,
In that era, you needed a financial planner before you're making such a decision. It was the formative process of the RTCs. They started to blow up right around the end of that Olympic cycle.
Yeah, right around 2012, it got big. After 12, I think I took fourth at the trials, had a really good trials, and I had 5 or 6 RTCs that I was talking to at the time, and granted, it ended up staying at the training center for another year, but it really blew up. It was great to see because before that, there wasn't a lot of options out there.
What's that struggle like to try to not just make a world team, but to even get there? You've got to make the national team, and when you make a national team, that opens a lot more doors for you. How hard is it to be that athlete sitting there on the cusp? It's like, I need to crack that, and I need to crack that shell. I need to hit this tournament, and then a lot of the funding is still on your own. I mean, you can be a facility use athlete, you can be a resident athlete. All these athletes that aren't in the top 3, they're fighting for that just to get there before they can even think about getting, these world team trips and such. So, what's that experience like?
Yeah, it was hard. Man, I never made a national team. I was 4th a couple times at the trials and pretty close. But it was something that was definitely in the back of my mind. And some guys were better at handling it than me. Whatever, for whatever reason. I have some ideas of why I probably struggled a lot more, expectations of where I thought I should be. And it was really hard when you got to the international level. It's some guys develop and pick it up quicker, but you got to realize like the distance between guys is really a game of inches. And the higher up you get, the ability to close the gap gets a lot more difficult. And it's progress and consistency and really not looking at the whole big picture. You really have to be good with that kind of day-to-day monotonous, consistency to really do it. Because otherwise, if you kind of get caught up in all the other stuff and you're just goal driven, it's really hard to do, at least in my experience. And I look back now and I think like, man, I had such high expectations, but I was making progress, but I was so focused on this right here that I hadn't seen how far up the mountain I'd gone. All I'd seen is I wasn't here. And I just didn't realize it was really just going to take a little bit more time than it did at the college level and the high school level. And granted, like I was in the Pac-10, not the toughest conference. I did have some tough guys, but so I wasn't seeing that competition, every week like you do in the Big Ten maybe. And Nevada growing up, you're kind of a big fish in a small pond. Granted, I still had tough competition, but to really be tested like that every day in practice. I mean, there was days in there where I was struggling so bad. I'd get the tar kicked out of me in national team camps and tournaments. And it just took a long time to really break through and have some success. And I did. I had some success, won some tournaments and placed in some tough tournaments. But it was, to your original question, for me, it kind of was something that was in the back of my mind a little bit and probably a little too much. And sometimes may have hindered my performance a little bit because I was like, I got to do this. And you're not focused on the wrestling. Do the wrestling and the rest will take care of itself. it's a mistake you learn from, right?
I wasn't very good at wrestling, so I didn't have those type of mistakes to learn from. Now, again, we're truncating your international career to get to Penn RTC, the opportunity there. Roger Reyna, head coach at Penn, his second run there. Brandon Slay left the Olympic Training Center to go out there with the Penn RTC, and obviously the connection there with Slay is logical in terms of how you ended up out there. Explain. You were in an era where there were no RTCs, and then the Penn RTC has the opportunity for you. And what's the story of getting there, and what was it like being a West Coast guy going all the way out to Philadelphia?
Well, I lived in Illinois for 2 years. I went from the training center to Illinois for 2 years, and that just honestly, it just wasn't the right fit. Jim Heffernan, Jeremy Hunter were great. They helped me. They were really open arms, and Mark Perry was out there. That's why I went out there, and it was a good experience, but it wasn't the right fit. And really my career took a downturn those couple years. I wasn't doing really well. I'd kind of fallen off from like where I was in 12, 13. And I didn't even qualify for the trials in 2016. And so I really wasn't sure what I was going to do. But what happened was, they were going after some big guys at the time. They were going to make a big push at some guys. And one guy in particular they went after. They asked him, "Hey, who would you want to bring in as your training partners?" And he named off 3 guys, and I was one of those guys. So this is so how this all happened is I'm in Dagestan competing, and all of a sudden I get an email that says traveling to Philadelphia Thursday, we're leaving Wednesday night, getting home Sunday. I'm like, why are we going to Philadelphia 3 days after I get back from a tournament? Like, I guess to train, whatever. No explanation of it. It comes from Slay. I'm like, all right, well, we're going to go. And I ended up getting food poisoning on the flight back. I ate a burger in Dagestan. Don't ever do it. I ate a burger in the airport, and that flight home was rough. But so Slay, the next day, Slay's like, hey, let's sit down, let's get coffee. I'm thinking like, hey, like this is going to be breaking down the tournament. I really didn't want to because my stomach was still all messed up, but he was like, making sure like, yeah, we need to get coffee. So spends 5 minutes talking about the tournament. And then he's like, all right, well, here's what's going on. We're going to Penn, and there's going to be, you and these other guys out there, and they're going to offer a contract to you that's going to be really good. And this is what it's going to look like. And you're going to get paid this, and you're going to have health and dental, and there's going to be some 401k options down the road, and possibly a signing bonus. So they really they did a phenomenal job putting this together. And so I went out there, had a great time. None of the other guys signed on, but I saw it as really an opportunity for me on 2 different levels. One, I saw the opportunity to compete. I still had a little bit left in the gas tank, but also I knew the prestigious network that Penn had, and to have an opportunity to get into that, and knowing that Penn was going to be my last place that I stopped before kind of transitioning out into whatever I did was really important to me. And so I made a commitment when I went there that I was gonna really connect with the network there. I would call different people that were involved in helping out and ask questions and build relationships and go above and beyond to really, really have a relationship with the network there. And so, Slay will always say I followed him, but he actually followed me because I signed on, and Brian Dolph was actually there. And then they had this change, and that's when they brought Slay in. And then they asked me, who would you want to go after? And I said, all right, let's, I gave them 3 names. I gave them BJ Futrell, Dan Valamont, and Aaron Pico. And they went out and got Valamont and Futrell. Sean Garrett was another one who I put down, and they didn't get those 2, but they got BJ and Dan. And so I went there. Great experience. Had a really good first year competing, actually. I thought that was one of my better years. I was 3rd in the U.S. Open. Like I said, I lost the first round. I had won the France tournament, had done well in trials, and really thought I was kind of reinventing myself a little bit from a style standpoint. Really kind of embraced learning some new things and was doing well. Actually that U.S. Open tournament came back and beaten all for third. And, he was on his run at that time. And then the next year I get dinged up. I get announced as being the volunteer assistant coach. I'm going to train and coach now. And that was, it was one of those things where I just knew I needed to do it. I needed to, as much as like I knew it was going to take time from wrestling. But where I was, I just tried to be honest with myself. Like, yeah, could I maybe make a world team? Could I do it? I just tried to weigh where I was at in my life. And I just felt like I needed to get some professional experience in case I got dinged up, in case something happened. I needed to refine my skills a little bit. So then I actually do get dinged up. I mess up my shoulder, like one of the very first practices that year, which kind of leads to a string of kind of injuries and things that it really kind of started leading me down the path of let's be done with this and let's just coach full time. But incredible network to be a part of, and people, man, they were been nothing but class. I mean, Roger Reyna, they helped me really design the business plan for doing this academy, and Brandon Slay has been a mentor of mine for 10 years. And then, I just get off this morning with Clint Motter, who's, one of the big guys over there, and is giving me business advice. And anytime I need something, I can get a call back from guys who are so, experienced in business and just willing to help out, and so I really got everything out of that experience and more. And I like to think that I bring a lot to the table and gave everything to them, and really tried to help them get this kind of next phase off the ground. They're going into their third year of recruiting now, and I think they're poised to start really doing some special things in the years to come.
Yeah, that's one thing I was curious on, what the tie-in from your new business venture coming out, the Gold Rush, which that'll be our next topic, is obviously the Wharton School of Business is there with Penn, and of course Roger Reyna has been known to be a fundraising machine in terms of and how they raise money out there, and great wrestling tradition across the street from Drexel, by the way. I mean, that's the shortest road trip ever, is the battle for the cheesesteak trophy. By the way, what is your favorite cheesesteak spot in Philly?
It's between Jim's and one called D'Alessandro's.
Okay, I know Jim's. I haven't had D'Alessandro's. So,
it's outside the city a little bit.
I know that there's one that's near that. Well, the last time I think I was there for the All-Star Class. When I was there for the All-Star Classic, I want to say, I don't even remember whatever year that was. Jack Childs told us about a place right down here. I mean, it's not any of the ones most people have heard of, but it was a little corner spot that was pretty close to both Penn and Drexel, because if you're close to one, you're close to the other. So that was a pretty good spot.
Probably Abner's.
Yes, Abner's. That's
like the one other coach gets go to.
That's pretty good, pretty solid.
There's another one, Tony Luke's. That's the other one. I like that one too, just because that's like, I just went there a lot, so it was more at a convenience there, but I did like that one.
And of course, those two places that are across the street from one another. If I was ever covering a match when I lived in Lancaster, the only reason I would get a Geno's is because I could eat it in the car, because it was cleaner than a Pat's. So when some of those places, they're better sandwiches, but sometimes you just got to grab a Geno's for the road. But all that business sense coming, not the cheesesteak stuff, but the Penn RTC stuff, all that formulates. And now you've moved back to your hometown. And before we I'm going to interrupt you with one trivia question about Las Vegas. So, do you know who the very first Division I All-American was from Las Vegas?
Callan O'Hara.
He is the first from a college in Las Vegas.
Okay, wait. Okay, what's the question one more time then?
The first Las Vegas native to be a Division I All-American.
Okay, hold on.
It's a trick. It's not a trick question, but oddly enough, I'll give you this. 1983, there were 3 wrestlers from Nevada that were All-Americans Division I. 2 from Vegas, 1 from Reno. So you've got 3 options.
Okay, there's one, Fred Little.
That was a couple years later.
This is not. You know what's funny is I've been trying to.
You've got O'Hara. So he did place first year. So you could say, you're a third correct. That's one of 3 correct answers.
Oh boy. I've been putting together this database, so this is going to be really good to know. I'm impressed that 83.
This school does not have, well, 2 of the 3 schools don't have wrestling anymore because, of course, we know UNLV doesn't have it. The other one's from Stanford, if that gives you any, and he's from Reno. That would be a Doug Perkins. Now, not sure if that name rings a bell. Now, the lightweight at 134 pounds who finished 8th in 1983.
I know this one, and I the names. Someone just told me a couple weeks ago. It's in my Excel sheet. I'd have to pull it up. It'd take too long.
From Weber State.
I know it. It's not Scrivens. There's that.
Yes, it is. You got it.
It is Scrivens. Okay.
Yeah, you got it. All right. So we by process of elimination, you are correct. So what's interesting is let's see how many of these All-Americans now all time. There are 20 All-Americans from Nevada in Division I. Let's see how many from Vegas. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 11 of those place winners, or 11 of those places come from Las Vegas because there's multiple place winners in there.
You mind rattling off the Vegas guys really quick?
Let's rattle off the Vegas guys. Well, Scriven, yourself twice, Gray Maynard, who was there multiple times, Eugene Harris, who you mentioned, Wade Zimmerman from Fresno State in '89, Kalen O'Hara, who actually had his first, his last placement at Oklahoma State, and then that'd be all the Vegas guys.
Wow,
Fred Little's from Carson City, LaValle, Perkins, Bader from Reno, Bryce Sador from Spring Creek, and Pat McDade from Winnemucca. Mac. I just always want to say that. Anyway, there's your Nevada history, folks.
I might need to get that list from you, man. I've been trying to put this thing together for a couple months now. I kind of fall off.
Took me years. I got all the Fargo stuff took me 5 years. Going through all the old All-Americans is what was crazy. Ed Ewalt, the coach from like Wheaton, Illinois, had these old binders and we found him in the Gable Museum one day, and I was like, this has got all the hometowns, and it goes back to 1928. I'm like, so it was that. So now that we're on the Vegas topic, how long is the drive from Philadelphia to Las Vegas?
Absolutely not. I jumped on a plane.
There's no way.
I looked at every option. I literally just decided, I was like, I'm selling everything. I'll send some boxes back. I sent, they haven't arrived yet. They're supposed to arrive tomorrow. And then there's some I checked on the plane. I was like, I'm just going to start over. I'm not doing this.
What's air travel like right now in the age of COVID-19?
I loved it. I got on Southwest Airlines. I had a seat between me and the other person from Vegas to Denver, and I was good. I watched my movie, and that was that. And then I got to Denver, and you could actually eat inside the airport. You could sit down at a bar and have some food and have a drink. And it was that was the first time in months. And then from Denver to Vegas, I think there was probably 20 people on the flight. I had my own row, and but it looked like it was starting to pick up a little bit more. Denver was definitely felt a little bit more normal. Vegas was empty. It was really weird. I've been wanting to come back to Vegas for years, and I in no way could have dreamed I would come back to Vegas where you did not hear slot machines and empty, and just like, it was weird. It was weird.
Yeah, now the city's opening back up, so that kind of things are starting to move forward with that. And then you're a Vegas guy, so I mean, it's got to be eerily quiet, even around town, right? I
would say, the riots they got a little crazy. A officer was shot the other night in the back, back of the head, and granted, it's been tough in that way, as it is across the country, and but that was a little crazy downtown. But they reopened last night at 12:01 a.m. They had people outside casinos waiting, and I think business will pick back up. People want to get out, and hopefully there's no second wave of this of sorts. But it's picking back up. When I'm out on the streets driving, it's Target's open, restaurants are open, everything's 50% capacity, but it's good to see, comforting.
All right, GoldRushWrestling.com. It is titled Chase Pami's Gold Rush Wrestling Academy, prepping wrestlers for the long game. What's the brainchild behind this? What starts the idea? It's like, you know what? I'm going to do my own thing now.
Sean Bourmet, man. Sean Bourmet did overtime in Chicago. I knew about this thing, oh my gosh, 10 years ago. And I thought, you know what, like, that'd be really cool to do something like that in Vegas. And I've always enjoyed working with kids anyways. I've always had more of a passion for the high school and the elementary and the middle school age. And really, because you can kind of prep kids for life as they get ready to go into the real world. So I have that kind of dual role of wrestling was one piece. And like I said, I wanted to be going to Bible college and be a youth pastor, and things went a different way. But this was a way that I got to do that. So through the years, I was really intentional. I would do clinics in Vegas. I'd come back and did multiple clinics, multiple camps, always made it really affordable. I'd come back and do clinics for high schools and do them for free and just say, Coach, let me come in and run a clinic for you. And I just try to build that relationship because, Vegas is a little bit of a different animal in some ways. It's there's not the kind of like other places. It's okay. PA kids go everywhere. They go train at they go to their high school, but they go train at different clubs, and coaches are not worried about kids kind of maybe getting poached or whatnot. And sometimes that's been a history here of sorts. I really wanted to act as a bridge builder and kind of build this kind of just neutral training kind of facility center that kids could go to in high school, and really give kids the opportunity to experience wrestling at the highest level. Growing up, I didn't have the resources. I didn't know. Luckily, I had coaches in high school who knew wrestling, and then Gray and Eugene were my club coaches. And so I learned a lot from them, and they really taught me a lot and helped my wrestling IQ. And and my high school coach would give me VHS tapes. And so I learned from it that way, but I really didn't have the background to do it. I had to put together my own training cycle for senior nationals. No one put it together. I planned everything out, and I went out and ran track just to be in shape and all that. So with Gold Rush, I just thought, man, I want to create something here that allows these kids to have the experiences I did. And I would have never thought 15 years ago I'd go to all around the world like I did and live in the different places I did, call John Smith and have phone calls with him and ask him questions. And I could have never thought of all these things, and Vegas has a lot of opportunity, man. There's a big wrestling market here. And you have the MMA and you have the jiu-jitsu and you have kind of this hub and you have all these different gyms, but you don't have a wrestling gym, like just a pure wrestling gym. And, the other person that was influential in this was actually Izzy Martinez. I lived in Illinois and got to see what he did. And I thought he's done a phenomenal job with that gym. I mean, those kids are tough kids. I mean, they're getting recruited by all different coaches. And the kind of the model he used, they're specifically a wrestling gym. And I think there's that opportunity here in Vegas, kind of from, into the business sense. So I made the plan to do it. I was really this past year, I was kind of teeter-tottering back and forth, like, cause I was a full-time, I was making good money. I'm like, man, I'm making good money now. I'm like, shoot, do I really want to leave and take this risk? But Roger Reyna, helped me put together kind of a business plan. I had an issue with my father back in January where, my parents are in their mid 70s and I wanted to be close to them. I don't know how much longer, maybe they get 10 years, maybe they don't, but I want to be near them. And that was really important to me. And, and then just my age, I'm 33. I don't have a lot of responsibilities in terms of family or kids or that or whatnot. I can really commit some years to building and laying the foundation and getting it right on the front side here. So when I say the long game, for me, this is a long game kind of thing. I don't think like how long is this going to take to build necessarily, like how many years. I just try and think of it, kind of the day to day. I go back to like I thought when I was an athlete and I was thinking always about the, the international stuff. You're thinking about the, all this stuff on the front, all these goals you want to achieve. But I have a long-term goal in mind, but really taking care of the day to day and creating a business plan and a business structure that really things move slow, but you manage people the correct way, kind of going through it. Even now I have almost, we're probably at about we're at 50 kids. Probably we have more. I'm going to close spots really soon. But I've been going through calling every parent, and we're having a conversation up front, and I'm telling them, look, this is what I'm about. And I ask them what's important to them and get to know them and really let them know, like, yes, this is about your kid being great on the mat, but your kid's going to be great off the mat too. I believe that. Not every kid's going to go wrestle in college. Not every kid's going to go Division I or some will go Division III. Some will go and be, they'll go into private equity, and other kids might go into engineering and things like that. So I'm going to prepare. Part of this is me. I'm going to prepare your kids to be ready to go into that, ready for life, in practical ways. So I'm building into my curriculum, not just the wrestling stuff, but also the community piece of it, where kids are going to be required as part of this. And part of it is building the relationships with the parents. Is the parents need to be involved. I want them to be involved. So, doing community events, study hall, grade reporting, being really assets to their family or being assets to the community, but also being great sons, being great daughters, whatever that might look like to their family members. And when they leave and they go through Gold Rush and the system, I hope these kids are spoken highly of, and from day one that'll be communicated that, you represent a brand of Gold Rush, but you represent something more. You represent Las Vegas, in a community that's not known for wrestling, but I believe down the road, part of things for me is the culture here, to change the culture of wrestling, and looking at all different ways, from a Las Vegas standpoint, but even up into Reno. I've started calling, before I even moved here, over the last couple of months, I've called every high school coach in the city and try to, have a conversation and just say, like, this is what I'm trying to do, and just really trying to get everyone on board and help make Nevada, a place that people want to come recruit. Like for me, like I was a Nevada kid, not a lot of people knew, but hopefully in the next couple of years you have, Big Ten coaches coming out here and looking for kids and, really able to elevate the sport to a different level out here. So it is, yes, about Gold Rush for me as a business and a full-time thing. But the bigger picture is I want to use that to really elevate the level of competition from everybody and really create something great out here in a wrestling community that I believe can thrive.
You speak of the wrestling community. One thing that I would seem to think that there's probably some clutter, and you talked about with earlier when you were talking about the judo, jiu-jitsu, wrestling. Well, I remember sitting at a blackjack table at the 2015 World Championships, and I'm sitting next to a guy with cauliflower ear. Now, naturally, my first inclination is I see cauliflower ear. I'm thinking this guy's in town for the wrestling. No, he's a fighter. He lives locally. He didn't even know the World Championships were going on. So you've got that aspect where you walk down the street and see cauliflower ear. It's not always going to be a wrestler. So you've got the fight game in town. But again, you've got these gyms that will offer wrestling as a class or something. How are you going to try to put Gold Rush above that? I mean, that's the pretty much the center of one of the centers of MMA in this country, and where they're training. And you got names. You bring up Gray Maynard and Randy Couture and things of that nature out there. So how are you going to try to get your wrestling gym to kind of rise above that clutter where there's a lot of wrestling here, but there's not a lot of wrestling, if you know what I mean?
Yeah. That'll be something to kind of figure out along the way. I haven't lived here for a while, so I don't know a lot, but one thing I've been doing is starting to network into the MMA sector a little bit, and some of the jiu-jitsu people, some people over at UFC. Gray's been great in helping me kind of talk with different, and really just doing what I did before I even decided to go with Gold Rush, is just gather information, just having conversations with people. Let's go grab lunch. Let's go get coffee. Tell me a little bit about yourself, a little bit about Vegas. What's the community like? Because MMA works a little bit different than wrestling, and just trying to understand kind of how that community thinks. And really, as time goes on, adjust my business plan as it goes. For right now, my focus is I'm going to build the best kids program that this city has ever seen. Gonna build up kids that are assets into their community and are great. They're going to be great wrestlers. I have no doubt they're going to have every opportunity to do it, but focus on that. and let's see how well I can do in that. Let's just focus on that in the moment, from the day-to-day stuff. And eventually, right, you do things, it's kind of cliche, but if you build it, people will come. If you build it, you build a brand that's, and you build something where the wrestling's good, but also the people that are a part of it. I'm really trying to, again, as I go back to on the front side here, the people that are a part of Gold Rush, that we haven't I haven't met with the parents yet, but just kind of talking to them, you represent, yes, this club, but you represent Las Vegas, and let's be good people. Let's be good people in the community. Let's be the kind of people that the community talks about and other people talk about, and they know when they come to Gold Rush to train that they're gonna get an experience more than just the wrestling stuff. For me, I'm a big customer service guy, so this ties in. Like anytime I deal with whatever, customer service is big to me, and for me, like that's a very, very important thing to me, and I hope that I keep that all along the way and all through the years. But I'm just going to focus on what I'm doing right now and not try and get too spread thin. And along the way, kind of learn what the market's like and learn what people are doing, and see how I can make adjustments down the road. Because you get too much too fast and trying to handle 30 things instead of let's build this right here. And if people see the value in that, I think people will come. And the good thing for me is, man, I'm healthy. I'm 33. I work out every day. I still wrestle. I can still go pretty hard for quite some time. That was part of me also leaving, is like retiring, is I'm like, you know what? If I'm going to do this, I need my body and I need to get it intact. Because, I wouldn't mind helping maybe a fighter that helps out. But for now, the kids are most important. And if, when I have time, I'll help out a guy here and there. But these kids and helping them get to the next level is what I value most.
One of the cool things I like about when you get guys like you that go back home, so to speak, that's one thing that makes Pennsylvania one of the better high school wrestling states in the country, if not the best, is all those guys, when they're done with their college careers, they go back home or they teach, or they've got, the Strip Matter's got a club out there. Obviously, Young Guns, we know how good they are, but, they put them in the school systems. And then I go to Fargo each year. And when I go look in the corners of these states, and, you've got some of the college coaches that are on the state staff, but then there's guys, and I'm going to use Ben Askren as an example, because Ben, with his Askren Wrestling Academy, for example, he is in the trench. He's there, mat side. He is walking around, coaching his kids, and he's got a absolute vested interest. And you saw that with Bormet at Overtime, when he was in Illinois, and it wasn't just like, the stigma of making money with a private club is gone. Thankfully, we've gotten past that hurdle. Now it's, what are these guys here for? When you see a national runner-up, a two-time All-American going back home, and then eventually you're going to be mat side in Fargo when we get back to Fargo. To me, that's one of the cooler things about when you give back to wrestling. Yes, you're making a business out of it, but that shows that, yeah, I'm here for the kids, and to see that over the years has been great. Not just like, oh, great, we got a college coach on our Fargo staff who might see the kids for a training camp in a week in Fargo, and that's the extent of the relationship. Whereas you've got chops, you've got the international career, you got the college career, you've got the coaching acumen, you've got the networking, and now it's your turn to give it back. And that's one thing that I like to see. And other than Bormet, which you mentioned earlier in the episode, who else are you kind of patterning your club style and maybe your coaching desires on where you're going to go with these kids after?
Yeah, I've called almost as many club coaches as I can think of. I still got a few more to call. Strip Matter's one of them, that guy I'd like to talk with, but Cliff Fretwell, we had a great conversation, Compound Wrestling, a couple of weeks ago, and gave me some good insight. Talk to Max Askren over at Askren and find out what they did. Talk to the guys over at Pinnacle, and Jared Lawrence has been a great help to me and tool to me to kind of give me information and what they did. And, Nick Perler and what they've done over there in Missouri and how they built that thing. Sanderson, Kyler just started one over in Utah a year ago. And, there's going to be some cool opportunities, I think, to maybe do some cross stuff since we're so close and kind of hear what his first year was like. So I've really just kind of taken a little bit from every person, hear what they've done right, what's worked and what hasn't worked. And and then take kind of some of the business flair from Penn and try to incorporate some of that just to make it more efficient. Because as wrestling coaches, right, like we're taught to like you grind, you work hard, but there's other ways too that from a business side that can implement it to make your coaching even more valuable. Where like right now, yeah, I'm doing everything. I'm built a website, built my books out, negotiating my own, things that I'm kind of like learning on the fly and just asking questions. But as this thing goes, how can I be more efficient in hiring, maybe people to do analytics and so, maybe instead of hiring a wrestling coach, hire someone on the backside to do the analytics and figure out like, what the trends in the months and how things are up and down and kind of, really be that. And you kind of stick to your strengths. I know what my strengths are. I know where I'm good and I know where I'm weak. And so I'm going to try and implement some different things, with this.
Sabermetrics.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're going to moneyball this.
I don't want to say that, but I do have a desire with this to see like what kind of other ways you can be more effective in doing it. And for me, like, again, being the coach and for the next 10, 12, how many years, like I'm healthy for that long. Maybe I'll step aside after and let someone else kind of be more of, hopefully by then we have, what you said, 20 All-Americans. Let's see if in 10 years, maybe pretty, might be ambitious, but let's see if we can double that maybe.
So 20 and 20. So you got to figure out your first 4 are the ones, the high school class. So you realize you're packing 20 into 15 years realistically.
Let's see.
There's a challenge. There it is, the gauntlet.
Let's see if in 15 years we can get 20 All-Americans out of here. I need to write that down so I remember.
Put that on the wall.
20 Division I All-Americans, and then we'll have a bunch more at all the different levels because those are just as valuable, getting them at the D2 and D3 and them getting a great education. So.
And coming back to Las Vegas and teach and coaching the next generation.
Yeah,
to me, that's like the hugest benefit of wrestling right there.
That's it.
Is not the top 1% who achieve the great things we desire. It's, like the high school coaches around the country who are on the squad and loved wrestling and, they're teaching and coaching and, they weren't necessarily D1 All-Americans, or maybe they were, maybe they're an NAIA guy or they, they spent a year in junior college and placed, or they just love the sport for it. So
yeah.
I love what you're doing, man. I'm just, I like that goal. And as the time we got left, anything, I mean, I can just see, I'm looking at your logo on the website and it's like, that's just going to be sharp on a black shirt. I mean, that's it. But I guess the last thing comes from the business, level, I guess the business world, difficulties in starting a business in our current financial situation. I mean, that's got to be a real tough pill to swallow it sometimes.
Yeah. You know what? A couple things. It's, Vegas should go to its phase 3, so to speak. And that kind of aligns with USA Wrestling guidelines in July.
You have outlined right on the website, right there. Just
so people know, man, I want to do things right. And there's some places I know that, and it's hard because it's like, I want to step over, but I also just, I want to do things right, and so I don't know what's going to happen, but I have a couple contingencies that I've built into place. I'm assuming right now under the current climate that we're going to go into a second quarantine. That's not me being negative. I hope not. But I'm just of some kind from a business side. I have to have nets and quarantines. I have to have. I can't even think of the word. I lost it. Contingencies built into place. Yeah. So, like one thing next week is I'm going to get this online academy off the ground. One of my best friends here has done short films and commercials and we got something cool to roll out. That's, I know a lot of people have done technique videos and things, but I think we're going to kind of hit on some things that maybe people haven't done before and try some different stuff. So there's that. Again, like I even all the clothing companies that I've been talking to and starting to have conversations with, I'm thinking, how can I be involved in what's, let me be an ambassador for this. Let me maybe help kind of get clothing out to different high schools and places around here and help out with that. You just kind of build things in that help you out on a rainy day. And the biggest thing, honestly, is you just treat people right. You be genuine. You care about them. You genuinely care about them. That's what I talk with these parents as I say, every one of them. The first thing is, this is authentic, genuine conversation with me and you. And this is what I expect moving forward. It's not if or when we have an issue. There's going to be an issue. You're going to disagree with me. You're not going to like something, and vice versa. And instead of doing it in the heat of practice, the first time we ever have a conversation when, his son over here has a bad day and now we're arguing, at least we've had conversation and some ground rules set up front so that when that time comes, we talk. And hopefully, like if we did go into another, something else happened, you have some people that understand what you're about and know that, hey, I'll still coach your kids online. I'll do mentorship for them maybe while they're in school and help out and, things like that. And so you treat people right and you be genuine with them and hopefully that shows through. And I'm at fault of that sometimes because I really care about people and I not at fault, but I really try to put my heart out there in what I do. But I hope that always shines through when I do it. And you hope those customers and people, not just customers, I don't want to refer that way, but the people that are a part of this, see the value and see the importance of helping out small business. Even for me, like anytime I get a chance, I see small business, I really try and support small business. I'm a big advocate. And like, if it's a coffee, if it's a face mask and someone's making face masks, I bought face masks from companies, and things to just support people that are doing it at kind of the smaller level. Cause there's value in it. Right. So just be genuine. That's my approach with it,
Now enrolling, goldrushwrestling.com for the fall semester. Once we're back on it, you can follow Chase at Chase Pami on Twitter, Gold Rush Wrestling on Instagram, and at Chase Pami also on his personal Instagram. Chase, any final things you want to throw over before we wrap up here on Short Time?
This was great, man. Dude, this was fun, man. This was a normal conversation. We've known each other for a while, back at the training center, and it was fun to finally jump on. I've been watching, listen to your show here and there throughout the last year for sure. And man, you're killing it, doing a great job and doing a great job all around the world. So let's see if I can get another John Smith impression. I think that's how we got ended.
My pappy used to take me down in the basement and drill them leg laces and just snap them bar stools. That's the story you told. I've got a video of it somewhere. It's on probably maybe this hard drive, or it's on maybe, is it on this hard drive? I don't know. I mean, I got hard drives of all that USA Wrestling stuff when I worked here. We never aired it.
We might need to find those videos. If I don't get this one right, usually I would say like I would go run or something to try and like make up for it, but I'm not running when it's 105. But there's one other story, not necessarily story, but it was just a short conversation. There was like a small tornado that had happened there. It's not even like that interesting of a story, but I came up to him and he was talking to me. He's like, he said, oh man, he was talking about how the trees. Okay. So he said, I was like, man, yeah, John, there was a tornado. Yeah, it happened. And you see these trees are kind of like toothpicks out there, but I'm out there helping my neighbors and we're cleaning up trees and then we end up start talking about some other things. And he always like known for saying like, guys got to be tough. And he was like, Pam, you got to be a little bit tougher, buddy. You're you could be pretty good at wrestling. I've watched you. I know you have that little misdirection, little single. I know what my nephew taught you, and but you get a little bit tougher and then you'll be good, so something along those lines.
They need Stillwater, man. They need to get tough. It's Stillwater, man. It's Dell City, man.
And John, if you for some reason hear this, I have so much respect and I absolutely like please don't that's more out of what do they say? The sincerest form of flattery is what is it? What's that impersonation from The Office? Like that. But John's
now the turntables. I don't know.
I've watched him since I've been a kid, man. Since I in college. So
Yeah, I had on the Rudis show, me and Matt Dernlin we had gone through the 75th anniversary team and applying some revisionist history to it, and it was like bumping John off the 75th anniversary team, and then he called me like 2 days later, and I'm like, oh God, he's heard the show, and it was about something unrelated. So thankfully, I don't think you got to worry about hearing about that for a bit. But Chase, it's always been a pleasure, man. Glad to hear from you, and like I said, GoldRushWrestling.com. If you're in Vegas, check it out.
Awesome. Thank you, Jason. Appreciate it.
The Short Time Wrestling Podcast is proudly outfitted by Compound Sportswear. Shirts, singlets, custom gear orders, everything you need. Call up Cliff and the crew at cmpteamwear.com. Hey, you know what? Did you like the show? You want to hit that subscribe button? MatTalkOnline.com/listen. Various different ways to subscribe to this show on your favorite podcatcher of choice. And if you're already subscribed and you already listen and you love the show and you want to support this show and this network, MatTalkOnline.com/join the team. Become a team member today.